Dad roared, "Get out of here, you lowlife," and threw my childhood photos into the dirt. My brother stood behind him, smirking as he clutched the freshly altered inheritance papers. They thought they had broken me. They thought stripping me of my corporate title and locking me out of the family estate would leave me begging on the streets. But as I walked away into the pouring rain, I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, I reached into my pocket and felt the cold steel of a key they didn't even know existed. Less than 24 hours later, while they were busy celebrating my ruin, I was stepping onto the tarmac in Honolulu, watching the sun rise over a private beach. Follow my story until the end to see the look on their faces when they realized what they actually inherited, and comment the city you're watching from today. My name is Elena Vance. I am 27 years old, and until 48 hours ago, I believed that hard work, loyalty, and blood dynamics actually meant something. For the last 5 years of my life, I didn't have weekends, I didn't have a social life, and I certainly didn't have peace of mind. I sacrificed everything to build my father's real estate empire from the ground up, clocking 80-hour weeks while my older brother Julian lounged on yachts paid for by company dividends. I was the chief operating officer, the brains behind our biggest acquisitions, and the shield protecting our family legacy. But none of that mattered on the morning the sky turned the color of bruised steel over our Chicago headquarters. I was summoned to my father's private study at the family estate, a room usually reserved for celebrating multi-million-dollar deals. Instead, the air felt suffocatingly heavy. My father, Marcus, sat behind his heavy mahogany desk, his face contorted in a mask of absolute fury. Standing beside him was Julian, wearing a poorly concealed, smug smirk that made my stomach instantly drop. Before I could even greet them, my father slammed a thick stack of financial statements onto the desk. Julian had spent the last 6 months meticulously forging my digital signature and altering internal ledgers to make it look like I had been systematically embezzling millions from our primary development accounts. It was a flawless frame job, calculated to exploit our father's deepest paranoia. I looked at the papers, then at my brother's triumphant eyes, realizing the trap had already sprung. "Father, this is fabricated," I shouted, my voice cracking under the weight of the calculated injustice. I frantically reached for my tablet to pull up the real server logs, but Marcus didn't flinch. He was too deep in the venomous narrative Julian had fed him. He didn't see the daughter who had saved his business from bankruptcy. He saw a thief who had betrayed his trust. "Save the lies for the police, Elena," Marcus spat, his eyes cold. "I spent 20 years building this empire, and you dared to spit on it for a few extra zeros? I don't have an offshore account. Just look at the routing numbers, please." "Enough," Julian interrupted, his voice dripping with performance-grade concern. "Dad, let's just do this quietly. We don't need a scandal." His eyes darted to mine, glowing with predatory satisfaction. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he was loving every second of it. My heart hammered. I had given everything for this family, every holiday, every birthday, every ambition, and in 5 minutes, it was incinerated. Marcus stood up, his face purpling. "I don't want to see your face in my office or this home ever again. You are finished." He leaned over the mahogany desk, his finger pointing sharply toward the exit. "Get out of here, you lowlife." The words hit me harder than any physical blow. I grabbed my belongings as Marcus tossed my company keys and credit cards into the mud. I stood on the driveway as the heavy iron gates locked with a final, echoing thud. I had one suitcase, my phone, and a heart shattered. As the rain poured, I knew my old life was gone. I sat in a dimly lit 24-hour diner at midnight, the smell of cheap coffee doing nothing to clear the fog of betrayal in my head. My phone hummed with automated notifications, access denied to company emails, my corporate banking profile deactivated, and a cold notice from HR confirming my termination. Marcus and Julian had worked fast to erase me entirely. They thought they had left me with absolutely nothing. But as I stared out at the rain-streaked window, my fingers brushed against a small, hidden zippered compartment inside my worn backpack. Deep inside, my hand wrapped around a cold piece of heavy metal. It was an old brass safety deposit box key. My mother, Sophia, had given it to me secretly right before she passed away 10 years ago. I remembered her exact words, whispered from her hospital bed. "Your father and brother have agreed that eats everything it touches, Elena. When that hunger turns on you, use this. Promise me you won't look at it until you have no other choice." At 9 o'clock the next morning, I stood inside the vault of First National Bank. My hands shook as the teller slid box number 412 onto the table. When I lifted the heavy metal lid, my breath caught in my throat. Inside lay a thick leather binder containing the original incorporation deeds to an independent offshore holding company my mother had quietly maintained in Switzerland. Below the deeds were the property certificates for an unbelievable, fully paid $85 million megamansion sanctuary in Maui, Hawaii. Tucked behind the property papers was a bank statement showing $12 million in liquid cash, entirely untouched and completely invisible to Marcus's empire. 24 hours later, I was light years away from the cold, toxic streets of Chicago. As I looked out the window of the first-class cabin, the endless blue of the Pacific Ocean began to mirror the sudden clarity in my mind. Leaving my family hadn't been an act of defeat. It was my liberation. When the plane touched down in Honolulu, the air smelled like plumeria and saltwater, a stark contrast to the sterile, suffocating air of my father's office. Arriving at the estate in Maui was a spiritual experience. The sanctuary was an architectural marvel, an $85 million oceanfront masterpiece that redefined luxury. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls looked out over the Pacific, and for the first time in my life, I didn't have to report my location, my schedule, or my progress to anyone. I was finally the sole owner of my own destiny. But the real surprise wasn't the opulence. It was what I found in the private study of this house. My mother hadn't just left me an escape route. She had left me a weapon. Within the binder were detailed ledgers, emails, and financial recordings documenting exactly how Marcus and Julian had been cooking the company books for years. My mother had been watching, documenting, and waiting, knowing that one day, my brother's incompetence and my father's unchecked ego would try to destroy me. As I pored over the evidence, I realized that I held the keys to their complete undoing. They thought they had cast me out. They didn't know they had just handed me the match. The next morning, I met with my mother's lifelong personal attorney, Ilona, right here on the sun-drenched terrace of my new sanctuary. As she reviewed the financial data I had recovered from the safe deposit box alongside the current public filings of the Vance Empire, her expression shifted from calm professionalism to utter disbelief. She looked up at me, a slow, knowing smile spreading across her face. "Elena," Ilona said, tapping the documents. "Your father and brother think they just pulled off the heist of the century by cutting you out. What they don't realize is that they just swallowed a poison pill." She meticulously broke down the reality of the business I had left behind. For the past 3 years, my meticulous management had been the only thing masking the catastrophic failures of Julian's pet projects. I had been quietly restructuring loans, balancing lines of credit, and keeping our most aggressive institutional creditors at bay through sheer force of will. By violently removing me from my corporate position and taking absolute, unchecked control, Julian and Marcus had legally absorbed every ounce of that hidden liability directly onto their personal balance sheets. Worse yet, the specific corporate bylaws stipulated that without my signature as the primary guarantor on the upcoming quarterly audit, the banks had the immediate right to call in over $40 million in short-term debt. They had rushed to throw me out to claim a prize that was already hollowed out by their own unchecked greed. They didn't just fire their daughter. They fired their only shield against total financial liquidation. 3 weeks later, I was relaxing by my oceanfront infinity pool, watching the Hawaiian sun dip below the horizon, when my phone finally buzzed. The screen displayed my father's name. I let it ring for a few seconds, taking a slow sip of my iced tea before finally pressing answer. "Elena? Elena, is that you?" Marcus's voice vibrated through the speaker, completely stripped of the booming, arrogant roar he had used to cast me out into the rain. He sounded 10 years older, breathless, and visibly panicking. "We need you to come back to Chicago immediately. There's been a massive administrative misunderstanding with the audit." "I'm afraid I'm unavailable, Father," I replied calmly, listening to the ocean waves crashing against my private beach in the background. "Elena, listen to me," he begged, his voice cracking. "The lenders called in the $40 million line of credit this morning. Julian didn't know how to balance the restructuring accounts, and he accidentally triggered a default clause. The banks are threatening to freeze everything by Friday. We need your signature as the primary guarantor to stop the liquidation." I leaned back in my lounge chair, looking out at the endless paradise my mother had secured for me. "You called me a lowlife, Father. You told me you never wanted to see my face again. Why would a lowlife save your empire?" "Elena, please, we're family," he cried. "No," I said coldly. "You and Julian are a business, and your business just went bankrupt." I hung up, blocking his number forever. The Vance empire went into foreclosure less than a month later, and Julian is currently under active federal investigation for grand larceny and fraudulent accounting. They lost everything trying to steal what wasn't theirs. Meanwhile, I used my mother's liquid capital to launch my own ethical luxury development firm right here from my island paradise, finally free from their toxic shadow. Would you have helped your father save the company after how he treated you, or would you have left them to face the consequences just like I did? Let me know in the comments below.